All right, we're live. Um, Full disclosure before I even start, I went running today and had a gnarly allergy attack to something in the woods. So my eyes are less swollen than on my stories if you saw that, but still wicked jacked up. So do what you will with that. Um, anyway, I guess that kind of feeds into what I want to talk about today, which is I hate the term self-care, so I'm gonna try to avoid that, but I guess essentially self-care. Like for me, making the time to go running, which is something like literally if someone had told me a year ago would like matter to me and help me feel good and whole or whatever, I would like have laughed them out of the room and told them they were super drunk. But I kind of stumbled across it and now I love it and I feel better and more whole when I do it. And that's kind of like all of these little pursuits and things that I've been trying to incorporate more into my life. I recently went axe throwing, which I know sounds super weird, but turns out it's super awesome. And a lot of people I know were like, whoa, that's like a weird endeavor. And I was like, well, trying new things has been really hard for me since I had kids. I kind of got really comfortable with doing the things that I always do and kind of putting myself on the back burner, and all these things kind of felt like luxuries or unnecessary or frivolous and like selfish, which is not the case at all. And I think, that saying, you can't fill from an empty bucket or whatever, and that's how like people are supposed to justify you doing things for yourself. It drives me insane because like, why is it that you have to justify doing something for yourself so that you can give it back to other people? That's like the only reason that you're allowed to want things for yourself, is so that you can turn around and give it back. And I just kind of find that turn of phrase just super frustrating. And I hate also, I think I mentioned it, and hate's a little aggressive, but I mentioned it earlier, the term self-care. It feels like there's a certain amount of expectation put on it when you're like practicing self-care. Like it's supposed to be like, big things or bubble baths or whatever it is. And I think that that's a really hard term sometimes for me to grapple with, because sometimes it's not self-care. Sometimes I just want to do something because, I had my kids really young and I didn't get the opportunity to learn it when I had kids, like, or pre-kids, I recently took a land navigation class, which I've wanted to do forever. And pre-kids, I didn't get the opportunity. And I wouldn't call it, self-care. I just wanted to take a class. And so I finally did. And it felt really, really good. So I guess, it was me prioritizing myself, which is super hard to do. And I think for moms especially, it's like really easy to kind of ditch that. And okay, hi again. That super threw me off. There's a storm kind of going on outside and I lost connection, which is fine because I can just try to find my train of thought, I guess, which was stuff just because you want to, or you didn't have the opportunity pre-kids, or whatever it is. And I think it's totally fine to call it whatever you want to call it, but I think the most important part is to do it. It's really hard, and I'm totally not belittling you mamas or folks that have a really hard time doing it. I think for me, it took 8 years and 3 kids to finally decide to pull the trigger on doing some of the things that I loved that felt frivolous and unnecessary. And it's only really, to be completely honest, like the past 6 to 9 months that I've started making it a priority, and even more so since I became an ambassador for Adventure Mamas, because I firmly believe in, practice what you preach. So if I'm telling other women to follow the things that they love and the things that set their souls on fire, I also have to do that stuff. And it's not despite motherhood that I'm doing this stuff. It's because of motherhood. I want to be a well-rounded person. I want to have all of my part, feel comfortable in my role and not hard. And, I think a lot of the time people, when their parents don't want to talk about the fact that, pre-kid life got put on hold and things changed, and that's hard. It's really hard. And it's not bad that it's hard. You don't love your kids any less because you want to go backpacking for, a week without them. It's because you love your kids and because you love your life and because of all these things that allow you to trust in your relationship with them and your relationships. Your time when I went to Montana this November, I was like, oh my God, my kids are gonna have such a hard time without me, and my husband's gonna, be so stressed because he's taking care of the kids solo, and what am I doing? I'm so selfish, and blah, blah, blah. And my really good friend was like, you're showing them what it looks like to pursue things that you love and that you are more than just one role. And that really stuck with me because I think so often with motherhood, we kind of roll everything under the blanket term, I'm a mom. Or for me at least, I always am like, I'm just a mom. And there have been a couple times where it's been really cool where people not just a mom. Mom's a really big deal. And that feels really good. But I digress. I think under that blanket term, you kind of just lose some of those other things. And it's not until recently that I've had the courage to be like, you know what? Yeah, I'm a mom and I'm but I'm a runner. I'm a hiker and I'm all these other things that make up who I am. And I want my kids to know that it's okay for me to have a million little parts of myself and for them to have a million little parts to them. There's no one blanket term that can define a person. And I think that's where this whole endeavor of doing things you love becomes more than self-care, but rather a way to express who you are and help you understand your identity in a world that's sometimes really hard to do that in. So for me personally, I have made it mission statement or whatever to start doing those things a little more when they're possible. And I'm super fortunate because I have a really supportive partner. It doesn't always mean it's easy. It's hard to be like, okay, well, I'm going to go do this other cool thing now. Thanks for hanging with the kids. So we've definitely had to work through what that looks like for our relationship. But it's not impossible. And, sometimes it's hard. The other day I left and my son was like, well, it's really not fair that you get to go learn how to use a map and a compass. And I was like, all right, I see that. I get it. But, I can teach you this skill later. It's not black and white. My stuff isn't solely my stuff. It's nice to have that time and whatever, but there's skills and tools I'm stoked to share, and that's what I told him. And so there's all these gray areas, I think, in the grand scheme of things with taking time for yourself doesn't necessarily mean cutting, out the other people just so that you can have a moment alone. But also, it doesn't mean you always have to share it. So I guess it's just but I, from all of my rambling and I guess patting myself on the back for finally doing stuff, would be that it's hard. But not that you owe it. Yeah, you know what? You do owe it to yourself, I guess. I hate sounding like, one of those motivational speakers, you can do it. But I think you do, I do, everyone does, owes it to themselves to follow the things that set their souls on fire, that fuel their passions and make them feel like all the little pieces of themselves are coming together. So maybe that sounds crazy, maybe it sounds silly, but I think it's true, and it's just taken a really, really long time, at least for me, to understand that, you can be a mother and a million other things, and that taking the time to celebrate, oh, there comes the rain, taking the time to celebrate all of those other things isn't taking away any less from those other roles. It's like, you know, when you have a kid and then you have a second kid and they're like, your first is like, oh my gosh, like, are you gonna love me as much as you did before? You're like, yeah, my heart just gets bigger. And that's how it is with all of your identities and your passions and your love for things. It's your heart just expands. You don't have to lose any of those things to celebrate the others. So the rain's getting really bad here, and last time I talked over 10 minutes, IGTV wouldn't let me upload it, which is why last week's video is nowhere to be seen right now. I've been hesitant because I was like, I don't know if people would come check it out on YouTube, if it's worth their time or not. So if you think it's worth your time to watch it on YouTube, let me know, because then I'll start stashing them there so that you can find them, I guess, at some point. Otherwise, I will see you all next week. And as always, reach out if any of it struck a chord or if you want to share your story. Thank you. Bye.